Paul Lise speak to you about the new financial standards and the details of that and how the POS is being used to ensure that those standards are achievable. Paul?
Thank you, Perry. Good morning, everyone. So this morning we have Prince Albert on the phone, Perry?
That's right, just
okay. PA. Okay, just PA. Okay, good morning all. So we'll explore the wonderful world of finance, and we'll touch briefly upon our new Revenue Controllership Directive and how we've worked to incorporate some of the policy requirements and we'll say accounting requirements directly into the functionality of the new point-of-sale system, the POS RMS. Before, I always like to go back and look at what brought us here and some of the driving factors behind the changes that have impacted the finance community and our system's configuration as well. So in terms of background, the why are we here? Number one driving force was the 2009 internal audit on our National Operating Revenues. They came up with several recommendations that were considered as we were developing our new Revenue Controllership Directive, and on the next slide I'll highlight those three recommendations. And as mentioned, or not as mentioned, but as I will mention, the policy on internal control also is a driving factor in terms of new requirements with respect to the implementation of proper controls over our revenues. All with the aim and goal of ensuring sound financial management practices are in place. The directive that we develop aligns with the requirements of the point-of-sale system, as I mentioned, and we now have an interface with our financial system, as Perry alluded to earlier. The directive is meant to be high-level and directive in nature, whereas we've also developed a standards document, the Management of Revenue and Cash Standards, which supports the directive by going into more process detail. We've also provided a standard recognition or reconciliation approach within the document and clear direction in terms of some of the new requirements and more process information. Okay, back to the 2009 audit, which seems so long ago, but again, with the introduction of the Vectron and not having necessarily the complete functionality that we were looking for, including an interface with our financial system, we looked elsewhere for a new and better product. Hence the reason we waited to address the 2009 recommendations. So the first that came out of the 2009 audit was roles and responsibilities must be clearly defined within the revenue management function. The directive does address this. Like any directive, there's additional work to be done in terms of the national audit dealt with more the user fee, gazetted fee revenues. We've seen recent audits come out with respect to our other revenues, other operating revenues, namely leases and licenses and concessions, which are not governed by the same user fee policy. Nonetheless, we'll be looking to try and strengthen these roles and responsibilities to make sure that all parties involved are addressed. Secondly is again, financial controls, which is a precursor to the changes of the new policy on internal control, which also requires an additional emphasis be placed on monitoring procedures. And lastly, a requirement for us to standardize our revenue data reconciliation processes, and as I mentioned earlier, we have developed a common we'll call it a best practice reconciliation that we hope to standardize across the agency. Okay, national configuration. Again, the word you've heard today, the consistency, comparability, the requirement to standardize. This is also being driven by the Treasury Board policies dealing with common business process. ensure that as a government and even as an agency that we do things the same way, that we can capture information the same way so that we can improve our reporting. So to standardize the revenue controllership process by, of course, implementing a national automated point-of-sale system with an interface to our financial system, all gained with improving the timeliness of our information, establishing standard recognition. And I'll speak a bit more about the recognition, although this call is meant to be an overview, so you may find I'm going through each section quickly, but we will have a future call that will go into more depth and detail on some of the points I'm raising today. Standard recognition is one which has significant requirement changes, many of which are built into the point-of-sale system, but I'd certainly like to spend time going through those changes with you. And again, reporting requirements. As both Perry and Sean have mentioned, the RMS POS system does have significant functionality with respect to reporting. The more connected sites we have, the better information and the improved reporting we can have here nationally. Okay, next slide. I'm going to convert over to the slide. I think I wanted in this slide to kind of walk you through, and I know that we've all talked about, I think Perry mentioned the configuration, how the whole process works in terms of, we showed you what the point-of-sale terminal looks like in terms of your touch screen. The input will take place there, which is very important that we all input the same way. From there, if you're connected, or through whether it be direct connect or portal, the information will be transferred here nationally into a server here in the national office. And it's at this point that I will, or our team here will, export the financial summary data. Okay, yeah, sorry. The data will be exported from each POS location connected. The exported summary financial data will be loaded daily into our financial system. So we have a daily export program and a daily load program. So the export, again, concentrates on extracting from the data you've communicated to us the key summary financial data that we require, and then it loads that into the financial system. And when the load means is it actually creates a sales order for you, which you can then use to complete your billing process. Of course, the STAR program allows for a correction facility, which is the ability for you to make any changes or amendments or corrections to the actual sales order before it's finalized. To ensure consistency, field units not on the national RMS POS system must also use, so in the directive it's thou shalt use, it must use the financial system sales and distribution module, and the reason for this is we need to capture all of our revenue sales by material code. And as I referred to the input point, the input is based on our approved material code structure. From there, we export that summary financial information and load that. So we want other systems, if we do have locations not using the RMS solution, to also input by material code, so that when, in terms of our financial system reporting, we can improve that as well. Important to note that in terms of the directive itself, we have been, in terms of governance, it's of course sponsored by the Chief Financial Officer. It has been to Ops Committee for approval, which is the pre-committee to going to the Executive Management Committee, and we were actually scheduled to go this month. It's been delayed to January of 2013. At this point, the directive will become in force, effective in January. Although we've been using it and kind of selling it as being the law, in terms of, given the acceptance we've had from the Ops Committee, the representation on our steering committee as well, and the fact that the VP Operations have approved to a certain extent the work that we've been doing. Therefore, it's important for you to note that the directive will be enforced and will be applicable to you, to anyone across the agency. The highlights for the directive: control framework, and if we think back to the Internal Audit Observations, we talk about the financial controls. Policy on internal control wants us to strengthen our internal control within all aspects of our financial reporting, including the recognition of revenue. we're looking at, and we address in the directive itself, controls with respect to the safeguarding of assets, the segregation of duties, system access controls. Given that we control the material data structure, but you control your own pricing. So you'll have to control who has access to the pricing and the specific administrative rights that come with that. And lastly, the management and reconciliation of deposits. So all these we'll look at in more detail when we go through the standards document on our next call. Again, I've already talked about the recognition, which to me is probably the most important change, and when we talk about some of the accounting changes with respect to discounts, returns, refunds, upgrades, all with the primary goal of ensuring that it's consistently applied across the agency. And the last two are directly a result of the internal audit as well, the roles and responsibilities, monitoring and evaluation. I won't go into too much because I don't know how many finance folks we have. In a nutshell, your data is, as mentioned, communicated here several times a day. We export that data, summary financial information, and load it into our financial system. In the SAP, our STAR program, there is validation that does take place on the financial coding to make sure that the integrity of the file is intact before it actually loads and creates that sales order. And we'll go into, actually on our next call, the first part we'll look at the policy component, the standard changes in the reporting requirements, and some of the reconciliation issues we'll go through as well. But we'll also have the STAR team there to kind of demonstrate how, not just I'll show you the load program, but we'll spend some time on the correction facility as well, which I think is more important to you. Quickly on the expected results and benefits, again, we need to standardize. We have to come up with common processes. And again, these are all being driven by Treasury Board in terms of in government, how we operate. So it makes sense from an agency perspective that we do the same to ensure. In all this, we need to ensure throughout that we have proper controls over our receipts and receivables throughout the agency. And again, this also responds to some of the recommendations to the internal audit. Namely, the sound financial management practices are in place, the roles and responsibilities are now clearly defined, and the strengthening of our financial policy and control framework with the directive and the requirements that we expect to be followed. Benefit would be the efficiency and timeliness. I think by us exporting the information and loading it for you, you're already ahead of the game. This is done on a daily basis. Your deposit information is done daily, so the reconciliation should hopefully come a bit easier. We're also looking at ways within the financial system to try and automate a bit more of the reconciliation process. So there should be more to come on that within the next year or so. And of course, the fact that we have a national structure of material codes to ensure consistency and comparability in terms of the reporting of our financial information. All this to ending in more timely and accurate financial reports, which is a key consideration for our project and one of our key priorities. That being said, I thank you for your time and here to answer any questions if you have any.